how you doing? I hope you're having a great week. Welcome back to Fitness Advice You're Not Gonna Take Anyways. This week, we're talking about shoes.
That is a shoe.
This is a great shoe. I love this shoe. These are no bowls. This is their lovely cheat meal one. If you look on the inside, it's got donuts to match my donut. These shoes, I brought these specifically because these are actually the oldest shoe that I have. So before we start talking about benefits of the shoe and why proper footwear is important for muscle activation and growth during your workouts, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss an episode. All right, you ready for it, B?
Yes.
So these are the Nobles. I love the Nobles. The Nobles are wonderful because their surface is specifically designed to interact with rubber, wood, and concrete that you're on so that your workouts stay safe. The shoe is really important in workouts because of the absorption. You'll notice that this has a little bit of a lift on the sole, but it's not quite as much as a running shoe. I like these because they did that so that you can still run in these. You can do plyometrics in these, and if I land flat-footed, I'm not gonna feel this past my ankle. It's amazing. I love it. And they have a shit ton of patterns to choose from, which is really cool. But I like this shoe mostly for like hit days, functional days. If I'm doing arms and stuff, I'm probably gonna wear this shoe versus the ones I currently have on, which are my leg day shoes. And this shoe is great so that if you're a beginner and you're not sure how to land, you're not adding risk or injury and tearing tendons or even getting shin splints, which can really suck, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that this was more for lifting versus leg day. Now what are the key differences?
So the ones I currently have on are the Ryderwears, and these are lovely because they're so flat. And what I mean by flat is they're really, really flat. You can feel the ground in these. The reason that I like these for my leg days is they allow me to actually feel the floor and where I'm gripping. So when I'm deadlifting or squatting and I don't feel any activation where I should in the hips, more than likely, especially with my clients who are newer to me, I find it's their shoes. And it's because they don't feel the floor, so they can't feel the pressure of where their foot is pressing through. And we want to be pushing through the big toe in those movements and then kind of fanning the foot over to the pinky toe and then kind of gripping. So as you're moving through that movement, whether it's squatting or deadlifting, your toes kind of grip the floor just like it's a second pair of pants, which is nice, right? So these I love for leg days, but I do not recommend them if you're doing any kind of like plyometrics because they're so thin. If you're not seasoned enough in your plyos and you don't know how to land, more than likely you're gonna mess up your ankle. You might end up with plantar fasciitis, or you can even rupture your Achilles tendon. I see people do this even when they run. My ex-husband did that from running, which is not good. It's a 6-week process to recover from if you mess up your Achilles tendon. So, functional days, running days, leg days. These are my two favorites.
Now, you said functional days and running days as opposed to what I, in our conversation before recording, learned was the wrong choice.
Yeah.
Now, I have some experience, obviously, working out in a gym. I pretty much just do what a lot of people do. I wear random tennis shoes and sneakers, whatever works and doesn't look really weird. Don't wear sandals. But I've also run a number of 3 and 5Ks and a half marathon, and so when I first started getting into that, I had a pair of K Swiss. I liked them because they were lightweight. They had kind of the feature that you see in a lot of shoes marketed for that, where it has like the circular cutout, and your brain immediately thinks, oh, it's going to be springy. That doesn't really matter. That's kind of BS, and it's a marketing gimmick for visuals. But I liked them because they were lightweight and I had room in them to put in an arch support gel insole, which is important also whether you're doing leg day or lifting or running, is to mind your feet health and mind the support.
Yes and no. So I've actually had clients who are flat-footed and still wear these with success, including my own partner. He likes to say that he has duck feet because his feet literally kind of come out like this, and the arch is so collapsed that his ankle will even kind of turn in, which is really bad. So we have that internal rotation where the foot looks like this, right? And everything's flattened out. So these shoes are great for being able to help build the arch back up because you can actually feel the pressure of the floor and where you're pushing. The arch is more like having a crutch, honestly. It's there to force your foot into the position that it's supposed to be in, rather than forcing your body to make that mind-muscle connection. So I have other clients who do not wear any kind of insole for their arch or anything with these. After a while, your foot will adjust and you get used to it like any other shoe, but because they're so flat, people get a little bit freaked out and they go, oh, my feet hurt, my feet hurt. You're not used to it yet. You have to give it some time to adjust. Your body changes continually, no matter how long you work out for. It will always continue to change. And that includes your feet. So as long as you're pushing, pressing, pulling through the right avenues and right areas of the body, things are gonna change. So I kind of disagree with having arch support. I feel it's a little bit of a crutch for people, right?
Absolutely, it makes it easier to go through some of the workouts that I was doing. It makes it easier in some cases to run. When it came to this particular shoe, when I did the half marathon, I didn't put in a gel insole because I wanted it to be lighter. Now, how does weight impact the shoe that you're using?
So the weight, when running, definitely it can, because you don't want your feet heavy. If you want to get used to a heavier shoe, I definitely recommend running with like ankle weights and really low ones, 1 to 2 pounds, nothing over that. Outside of that, the weight of the shoe, this one is nice. You can feel it probably weighs about as much as your running shoe. And if you're jumping with this one and doing plyos, this is gonna keep you nice and light and still give you that support that you need, versus if you feel the material here versus here, you're gonna feel that difference in how that's gonna interact with the floor, right? I bet if you step on the floor with these, even though they're still kind of light, they're not quite a mid-grade, you're still slipping around a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, so these are great. Mine slip now because I've worn them out so much, but these are great because even if I'm on the floor and I plant myself and try to move around, I'm gonna stay put, which is great. And again, I've had these for 3 years. The life of the shoe also matters. Most shoes, you're not supposed to have 6 to 8 months, you know, and then they go bad. I've had this pair of Ryderwears, which I wear damn near every day, for at least a year now, almost. Christmas will be a year. My yellow ones are a year. So those ones I got a year ago, and they're still great. They're not falling apart, just like the Nobles. So the weight of the shoe doesn't really matter with the lift unless you're doing any kind of plyometric, I would say. These are still pretty light, and these are probably even lighter than that shoe.
Yeah, they really absolutely are.
So I like these for leg days because it literally just feels like I'm standing on my bare feet most of the time, but they still offer that nice like cushion and protection here, support around the ankle, right? And so if you're doing like a leg extension or something, this is really great for the front of your ankle, because we want to make sure that that bar is hitting somewhere between the shin and just above the ankle. So this comes up high enough to kind of give a little bit of cushion for that. So I don't think the weight so much matters on most movement days, unless you're incorporating any kind of like jumping, running, cardio exercise where you need to go really fast. Most days aren't going to require a shoe that is lightweight, but it is nice to have something light on your feet. These shoes are called lifters, and this is a really good brand. These are my partners, and you'll notice on the inside of these, once I fix the insole here, that they're the insole that comes on the shoe, that they're still like pretty flat, right? So if you put your hand in there, they're still actually really flat, even though the heel is raised.
Yeah.
Right. So it's only the heel that's raised. So when you're pressing through the shoe, from about your arch into your toes is going to be forced into the ground, and this is also going to push your heel down. The pressure is supposed to be even across this, and that's what this is for. Elevating the heel for most people helps to activate their glutes, which is really great. So that's why these are used a lot in like strongman and mostly in powerlifting. So you'll see this design here is lifted, it's super firm. There's no cushion there. There's no bend or give. And this is so that you get that nice even pressure for really good force through your lifts.
So it's not all just about visual. There are shoes that are structured for a reason.
Yes, yes, and you'll notice that is really, really solid. Unlike the rubber sole and the Nobles, these are designed specifically, and you'll notice he's had these for several years. They're not really worn out at all because they're only designed to be lifting squats in or doing squats in. They're not for anything else. So these shoes typically run at least like $250 and up.
Lord.
And they will last you years as long as you are using them properly. You know, the Ryderwears are a little bit more affordable, I feel, at like $120 to $150 depending on which one you're getting. And the Nobles are right about the same price, which is really nice too. They're an affordable shoe that's gonna last you a lot longer than a Nike shoe. And they've got plenty of designs, honestly. People are always like, I want a shoe that looks good. No offense, but fuck your shoe. I don't care what you look like in the gym. I care more about how your form is and if you're performing well. And that has to do with your shoes as well as how you're moving.
And it also seems like a good example of getting what you pay for. You mentioned the price points and how long they're lasting, whereas the Asics, the K-Swiss, the Nike, those things, if they run you $15 to $40, they're going to wear out.
Really fast.
They're going to wear out because you need to buy another pair.
Yep. And honestly, that's also another marketing thing that I tell my clients to be wary of. That shoe looks really cool, but is it functional? Is it going to help you? Is it going to protect you the way that a shoe is supposed to protect you? Originally, we were talking about how when you run, you actually didn't wear shoes, and shoes didn't even come into play until the early 1900s when it became a fashion thing. So somebody was like, hey, I need to protect my feet when I run. But we still have different little like indigenous tribes all over the world that don't even know what a shoe is, and they run around barefoot all the time and they're perfectly fine. The only thing I would say about that is your foot is really susceptible to absorbing different things. One of my chiropractors likes to use the example of cutting a clove of garlic in half, putting it in your sock right under your foot, and then putting your shoe back on, and 5 minutes later you will taste that in your mouth. That is how absorbent your feet are. So it is still important to protect our feet, but we want to make sure that we're protecting them with the right type of protection in our shoe. The material of the shoe can determine how breathable it is. And you'll see that V's shoe here has all these little slots, and his is also made out of a knit material. This, to me, is just kind of a personal preference if you want a shoe that's really breathable. I also think it has to do with your own body temperature, what kind of shoe you have on. Remember that your feet and your head release most of your heat, actually. So if you don't want like a swampy foot, I also suggest drinking a lot of water, making sure you stay hydrated, get your electrolytes in, make sure your body's regulating its temperature properly. But if you like a breathable shoe, these are gonna be your best option. Noble does make a knit runner, which is really good, and it's about the same material. It's gonna be super breathable, just like this. It's a little bit more expensive than their normal functional shoe. But it's really nice, and it still has that same kind of cushion that these have, which is really good. It's a little bit more absorbent, but it's got a thicker sole to absorb better, right? You take those on trail runs and stuff. The only thing I find that can be kind of a hindrance with breathable shoes is if you're stepping in the rain, you now have a wet foot anyway.
Easier to get wet, does dry out quicker, but mostly I think when we think about the breathability of a shoe, we are mostly talking about, like you said, temperature venting, being sweaty. You know, if your feet are hot and sweaty and you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore, not a great motivator.
No. And if your feet are like moving around in your shoes, that's the other thing. Make sure you have the proper size. If your feet are moving around, sliding around in your shoes, you might need to check your size. If they're the right size for you, you might need to just take them off during a couple of exercises. I generally don't recommend this because I've actually broken both my big toes this way before, and I didn't have shoes on. I dropped dumbbells on my toes. Yeah, I'm lucky that they weren't super heavy dumbbells. I just got tired, and that was at the beginning of my training career, and that happens. It took 5 years for my toes to fully heal. That's too long. So shoes are important for protection. If you must take them off, make sure that maybe you're only deadlifting or you're only squatting, you're not gonna walk away from that area, and that you're being really mindful about what's on the ground underneath you as well. Give your feet a breather if you really feel like your foot's starting to get too swampy.
True. And yeah, to your point about not making sure that they're not moving around in the shoe,
Yes.
you don't want to end up with blisters. You
Right.
will get them like that if your shoe is not fitted correctly. And then you were also mentioning socks and how that impacts the airflow.
Yes. I wear socks that honestly are kind of thin. I get these every year, and they're just, these ones are elf. We get those calendar, like the advent calendar, and that's all I use for my socks. I don't get anything special like name brand, Under Armour, compression, or anything like that. While the compression stuff works, you don't need that kind of stuff during every single workout. If you're somebody who has a little bit of a problem with athlete's foot, you might want to look into like a Tommy Copper sock or something that's antibacterial, that's going to wick away the sweat for you, right? So that could be something that helps. But outside of that, just wear a comfortable shoe that has good protection, wear a comfortable sock that's going to aid, right? That would be the equivalent of, I don't allow my clients to use gloves when they lift, quite frankly, because of that sliding around. Gloves compromise your grip. If you don't have the right kind of shoe or right size of shoe and right sock on, you're sliding around in your shoe, you might compromise that foot pressure, and maybe you're not going to activate your vastus medialis in your front squat like you should, right? Your quad and your VMO is not activating, and then your knee starts to wobble and you can't figure out why you got injured.
Everything is connected. And that
Everything's
matters.
connected.